Good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to see each of you that are here tonight. So wonderful to see your beautiful faces. It's really been a wonderful experience for me to take the time to take this journey together, and I am so grateful that you've decided to join us tonight. For those of you that are watching online, I want to welcome you to another night of hope for hurting hearts. I want to say a special hello to Willie Baez, and I see Kimberly Terry is on. I know who that is. That's my aunt. I see Rena Daniel. Thanks for being here tonight. Jonathan Franco says, hey, we out here, ready to be blessed. I am loving this language. Just so happy to see each of you. Daryl Matlock, very happy that you're here. If tonight you are coming and there's something on your mind, you're concerned about this work week, just type in the comments, hold on. Type in the comments, hold on. If you're here tonight, why don't you just say that at your table? Try to whisper it if you can. If you feel like you don't want to yell it, just say, hold on. It's a really important thing to know. I remember growing up in South Florida on the Atlantic Ocean in Fort Lauderdale. We would oftentimes see lifeguards go out and rescue people because they would get into a rip current or a rip tide. I remember seeing lifeguards go out once on a sea-doo, on a jet ski, and as they got out to the person, they realized they weren't going to be able to pull them on the jet ski, so they took a flotation device and they threw it to him. It wasn't too far offshore. You could hear the lifeguards yelling. You could hear the person trying their best to hold on, and the lifeguard kept yelling all the way in. We could hear him over the hum of the jet ski. Hold on. One wave after the next. The lifeguard just kept yelling, hold on, hold on. And so I want to encourage you to know that no matter how many waves roll in over your life, no matter how many people treat you poorly, no matter how many doors close, I want you to hold on. So make sure you type that in the comments. I'm glad that you're here. I want to know where you're from. I want to know where you're from. Why don't you write in the comments where you're from? Do we have who's from South Carolina or North Carolina? Who here is from my current home state, Michigan? How about my friends from Florida? Anybody here from those areas? If you're from South Carolina, who's here from Greer, South Carolina? Anybody? Boiling Greer, we got some beautiful Greer folk here. What about Boiling Springs? Is it Bowling Springs or Boiling? Boiling Springs. Do they have Boiling Springs in Boiling Springs? Who's here from the city, Spartanburg City? There we go. I got a few Spartanburg City. And who's just here from Spartanburg County? You're in the county. That's good enough. You get good county water. How's that sound? Well, I'm so glad that you're here tonight. And I am really looking forward to our dialogue tonight with our special guest. Tonight, I'm also taking on a very important topic in my talk. And I want to ask you if anyone has ever made a promise to you that they didn't keep. Has anyone ever made a promise to you that they didn't keep? Why don't you write in the comments the word promise? Promise. If you're here tonight and you want to hear more about how to navigate life when you're dealing with broken promises, this is what this topic is all about. Our special guests tonight are here local in this Spartanburg County area. They moved here just under 3 years ago from North Carolina, serving there. Ross Knight is a pastor in our local church here in Spartanburg, and his beautiful wife, Megan, is a teacher in District 2 of Spartanburg, and they're going to share a powerful story. So as soon as we see this commercial break, we're going to come back to hear from Ross and Megan Knight, and we're going to hear tonight a story that you've got to hear directly from them about what it takes to really hold on when you face some difficult challenges in your life. Leaders, I'm John Boston. I want to tell you about this incredible machine behind me. It's, of course, a submarine. It was created to go undetected. Its stealth and ability to hide is its strength. You and I, we weren't created to live like that. We weren't even created to lead like that. There are hurtful experiences in our journeys that we try to push out of sight. I do it. I struggle with it all the time. But when we do that, it often causes more damage than good. I'm inviting you to join me for Leading from Your Pain. It's a series that I want you to be a part of as we discover some of the principles and practices to overcome that significant challenge. Press the button below to begin right now. You need that hurt to surface up so that you can experience what it means to lead from your pain. Press the button to get started right now. Well, welcome to the Night family. It's so good to see both of you. Ross and Meg. Ross, where were you born?
I was born in Asheville, North Carolina.
Get out of here. Are you serious?
There was.
I never knew that. That is absolutely incredible. It's hard to find people born in Asheville. It's such a beautiful destination. I try to travel there once a year to see the leaves change. So about this time of year, I'm hoping I can get there before I leave this part of the country. Megan, what about you?
I was born in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Are you serious? So you guys are just destined for greatness because the whole world comes to see both of you in the fall and all throughout the summer and spring. Well, that's absolutely a treat. Where did you guys meet? Was it in college? You met on a dating app, or where did you guys meet?
We met in college, Southern Adventist University.
And so was it love at first sight?
I wish. I had a crush on her, but I didn't get the nerve to ask her out until after we had graduated from college. So
you guys, how long have you been together now?
We've been married for 5 years now, and we started dating 8-9 years before. Well, not before, but together, yeah.
We started dating. We started dating 3 years before we got married.
If you're watching tonight and you have a crush, that you have someone you have a crush on, why don't you write the words crush in the comments? And what we're going to do is we're going to have Ross tell you how to build up the courage to let that crush know, okay? And so he's going to give us some dating advice later on. Well, when you guys met at a young age, you're ready to embrace life. You're taking this beautiful journey together. You're both good-looking people, easy to be around, lovely to talk to. What's a difficult thing that you all have faced in your marriage that is made a difference in your journey?
Well, it was about, we've been married for 2 years, and we, had that conversation, we're ready to start having a family. And we were expecting, we were not like, we weren't going to think, oh, it's going to be a month and, but we weren't expecting that things were going to present itself that we were not prepared for.
Wow.
So after a year and a half of trying, we moved here to Spartanburg, which was kind of a blessing because there's better doctors and more fertility specialists. And so after the trying, we went through some testing and we decided to do the IVF route. And everything seemed to be going really smoothly. Our first embryo took, but unfortunately, we had lost that baby. And so we tried again, and that embryo took, but the same thing happened. And then after some genetic testing, we just discovered that there was a genetic disorder that was going to prevent us from ever carrying a child full term.
Wow.
It was already a rare condition that we were already fighting. And then we essentially found out that the genetic issue that I was having was even more rare. And so you had a rare condition on top of a rare condition that we were battling, essentially. And so, I think that was something that we had to really wrestle with. We had to also be united in the decisions that we were making, how long we were going to pursue something before going a different direction. We had to really have some intimate moments with God that, wasn't always pretty. For instance, I'd walk upstairs and I could see my wife in tears after praying for long periods of time. And as a husband, I think probably the thing that is the biggest struggle on my end, is that I am that stereotypical guy who wants to fix every
Sure.
situation. I want to be able to fix the problem that is currently existing, and the realization that you are completely helpless in being able to navigate what's taking place or prevent your wife from the tears that she's having.
Yeah. You start life with this idea that things are going to fall in place at the right time. And Megan, it sounds like when you both realized that you weren't conceiving naturally, it seems like that was you hit a hurdle and you decided to move past it and you said we're going to go in vitro fertilization, IVF. And then
And that was a process in itself. I mean,
yeah,
a giant,
yeah,
like we kind of went right past that, but that was a giant journey
yeah,
in itself. And honestly, when you go that route, it's the woman who has to go through the
sure,
trauma of the hormones and all
yeah.
the things that are happening. You know, she's the one who has to take the brunt of the pain,
Hmm.
all of the pain, really.
And it doesn't negate the emotional toll on the relationship, but it's certainly the physical brunt of it is resting in you. And so here you and the fact that you're here sharing, I just want to again say thank you on behalf of myself and every person watching and every person here in this audience, because that's a lot of vulnerability. And the way that you shared it, you can put it in a few sentences, but you're talking about a month of hurt and months of trauma. And I just really value that you're willing to share this with us. So you find yourself in this really difficult place. It sounds like you're both people of faith. It sounds like that. And I don't want to assume anything, but recognizing that you're both people of faith, I do want to ask a question that's not like in the script, and I hope that this doesn't put you on the spot. But my question is, did you ever lose faith? Did you ever feel like, why did you let me go through this, God? Why are you allowing this to happen?
I don't know if I necessarily lost faith, but I did have lots of questions of doubt,
Sure.
like lots of questions of why is this fair?
Mm,
I battled a lot with my own personal like judgment almost of others. Like, why is it okay for them, but not okay for me?
wow.
Like, I had to, like, that actually took prayer in itself, but I really had to battle, I almost like I was judging, like, they deserve it, they don't. Like, and that I had to deal with that
Sure.
myself because it was just my process, I guess, of grieving.
Yeah.
But it wasn't my place. Like, that's God's decision, not
Sure.
mine.
And it's also you have to deal with the when are you guys having kids? What are you waiting for? And getting baby shower invitations from friends or neighbors or people that you work with. It's that's quite a journey.
I mean, the world we live in, it's you know, we're in the Facebook and Instagram generation right now, where you know everything is public and everything, and so it's so easy to find yourself in this comparative culture, you know, of seeing what someone else has or doesn't have, and then you know looking at what's happening here. You can also, I know we can miss the blessings even that God puts in our life when we're so focused on what we don't have versus
Sure.
what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I mean, you guys are absolutely incredible. I can't imagine the what you're carrying right now in your hearts and in your minds. But every time I see you both, you've got a smile, your eyes are bright. And that's why you really can't really tell where people are coming from. And it's important to be gentle and kind with everyone. And I'm guilty of not always practicing that, but it's a great reminder. My
I think from day to day, you know, even you know, with everybody wearing masks right now during COVID and things, for some, it's even almost a way to hide the emotional pain that they're currently experiencing,
Certainly.
because they can cover their face so they
Yeah.
don't see the scars that they're hiding.
Yeah, yeah. And those scars come out through our eyes, through the smiles we don't have, and sometimes the very shallow smiles that we do. My next question is, you found this very dark and difficult place, and the questions, the uncertainty, the anxiety, I would imagine. I don't want to add words, but I'd imagine there's this sits as a man how do I fix this? How do I remedy this? As a wife, what has caused this? How could we have done things differently? What should have happened? And how did you get past that point to take the next step? After losing the second embryo that didn't take in your story, how did you say we're going to keep going in a different direction? What was it that helped you turn that corner?
Well, first we had to, like, yes, we grieved the loss of both babies. And then I personally, and Ross as well, there was a part where you almost have to grieve the loss of not being able to carry a baby, especially as a woman. That was something very difficult for me.
So you have to mourn the loss of the dream,
Yes.
the hope.
Yes.
Wow.
And that was, I think, something hard that I was never expecting that I'd ever have to do. But then we did. Once you go through those steps of denial and grief, all the stages, and we got to a point, it was the due date of our first baby girl, and we took the day off.
Yeah.
He didn't go into work. I didn't go into work. We went to Asheville, and we just kind of spent the day with God and in nature and just together, and said, God, what's next?
Yeah.
We needed, I think, for our marriage, for our mental health, we needed to find a way to move forward.
Sure.
And, that day is, I mean, you ask how did you move past that? Well, I would suggest that, our testimony is still being written, essentially, meaning we still process what we're going through. We still experience pain throughout this journey. But I have to say that day was such a turning point, because we prayed about it. I remember we were actually, like I said, we didn't have enough money to go and stay in the Grove Park Inn up there, but we had enough money to go and sip some hot chocolate out and looking out over everything from outside. And that was kind of where we started. That's really where we just kind of had this impromptu conversation as to, well, what do we want to pursue next? What do we want to do? And so really it was in that discussion that, I don't know, and I can only speak for myself, but when we decided, we said, you know what, I think God is pointing us towards adoption. I think this is something that, we kind of had that on the table a little bit, but it had never really been firmly decided that was the direction we were going to go. And I just remember, like, for me, it was like I'm carrying this big load, and all of a sudden it was just like there was a big weight that it was lifted, because it was like saying, it was kind of like this, literal, all right, we're going to go down a road that neither of us has really any experience in. And we're just going to go and we're going to pursue this because we feel like this is where God is taking us. And the other hard part about that is that, while we came to this conclusion ourselves too, like, we'd been through this journey, and I feel like there were some close friends and family who journeyed with us, but in many ways, I feel like we had kind of suffered in silence quite a bit. Like, we had not really shared, we'd not been too vocal about what was going on. And I remember that evening, I had kind of just had it. I was like, I'm tired of just being quiet about this. This is not something we felt a shame aspect to what we were going through. And we didn't feel like, we just kind of were both thinking, we're like, I don't feel like this is something we should be ashamed of.
Yeah, you're right.
And so I remember that day, like, I just kind of decided, I started, when we got home, I wrote this thing out, and I went to Megan and I said, hey, these are kind of my thoughts right here of our story. And I said, with your permission, what do you think if we just posted this on Facebook and just kind of put it out there?
Wow.
And I'm not the guy who has, like, I'm not like you, John. I don't have like 5,000 followers on Facebook. I've got my, I think,
as
like,
long as you're one of my
so.
followers,
Yes.
I'm happy.
There you go. Well, I'm saying I've never posted something and gotten that sort of a response from us.
Yeah.
Before. I mean, there was in the comments, not just in the comments, but the private messages.
Sure.
We didn't even realize that how many people it would touch other people's lives, but also that so many other people had been
Absolutely.
wrestling with this in silence also.
Absolutely.
And that really kind of became our purpose in sharing it, was to let others know that they weren't alone in what they were going through either.
Yeah. And it's fascinating that as a couple, you know that genetically, biologically, that this was an improbability, but somehow, some way, the mind, it captures that hurt as something that should have, or you would have liked to have avoided. You would have liked to avoid. And the mind doesn't know what to do with that hurt. And so what happens to it? It becomes fear about the future. It becomes shame about the past. And it's always, always important, if you're watching, to be able to tell your story at the appropriate time. It was the appropriate time for both of you. You were in agreement about that. And I'm grateful, again, that you're willing to share this tonight. If you had to speak to young Megan, I'm not going to say when you found out. I'm going to say knowing that this was coming. If you had to speak to young Megan, what would you say to her?
I would say to trust God. Don't make plans for yourself. I'm a planner. So I had, like freshman year, I had life planned out, and not a single.
We were supposed to get married at 22, not 26, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, I had life planned out, but I mean, God had, through my whole college experience, like he had different plans.
Sure.
So I just think I would tell myself, like, God has plans far better than your plans, to just trust him.
Sure. That's I think we probably all need to tell our younger selves that. Ross, you had to go talk to young, scared to tell Megan how much you love her. Ross, what would you say?
I would say, in another way, to also trust God and not try and fix every sort of a situation. Let me just give you a brief example, is that when we had our initial loss, I was devastated of not knowing what to do and how to fix it and how to make my wife understand that it was going to be okay. And I remember I arranged for us to that very day I was like, oh, let's get out of here. Let's go camping. Let's go where, Megan just wanted to take some time and be by herself and
Sure.
and sleep. And, while we love camping, we found ourselves in a place where we were not in a familiar zone. It didn't work out essentially the way I had wanted to. I had attempted to fix things by my own methods, and
Sure.
when we decided to finally just relax, that's where we were able to let time do its thing of healing. And so for me, I would probably tell my younger self is to let go and let God, essentially, and allow God to heal a situation, because I'm not capable of doing that. And,
Sure.
I would also say, look to the advice of others as well, who've been through these situations, thinking about the adoption process. When we decided to go and pursue that, we talked to several of our friends who had been through adoption before and had gone down that route. And they also really helped us, I think, find peace and also excitement too.
Sure.
It became, it really changed the narrative of like being, we still have discouraging days when it comes to this, but I would say it really flipped the narrative of being discouraged of what we don't have and more looking forward to that day when we will get selected for adoption.
So are you waiting on that day right now?
Yeah, we're actively waiting for a birth mother to select us.
Wow.
So it could be tomorrow. It could be a year from now. It's just
when
If I were a birth mother, I would totally select you all because you're amazing. Yeah, let's give them a hand. They're so amazing.
when you said hold on earlier, I was thinking, yeah, that's us right now, because I mean we've been on that adoption list for
Wow.
3 months now, I think, and it's a process even to get to that point, and it's money and it's all those
Yeah.
sorts of things. But what we have been blown away is that God just continues to give us answers and show up at moments where in ways that we weren't necessarily expecting. So we may be praying for something and he gives us something better a lot of the times.
You don't have to answer this. This is a personal question, but and you can say, John, no, let's move on. But I'm curious, because I was mentioning this to somebody earlier today, preparing for this interview. If you get a call, your home right now is prepared to receive a child. You're prepared right now. Is that accurate, or am I wrong about that?
We're working on it slowly.
You're just about as prepared as you should be waiting on this call.
Yes. My sister has a 1-year-old, so every time we visit, she sends little things back with us.
Wow.
So that's been a blessing. But
Sure.
yes, slowly we're adding little things just so we have the basics that if we got a call.
She painted the room the right color,
Totally. Listen, I don't know if I've ever met a couple more deserving to get that kind of call. And since I met you and since I've heard this, it has been my very personal and private prayer that before October 16th, that you all get that call. I know you're waiting before the end of this year, and I get that, but I hope that while we're in Hope for Hurting Hearts, that your expectation will be rewarded. And it's not inappropriate for me to hope that for you as earnestly as I do. But I have one last question, and
we would be thrilled for that, FYI.
If you want to see them get the call before this series is over, why don't you write in the comments, call now. Write in the comments, call now. I would love to see that, man. You guys deserve it. You deserve it. What you have experienced and your willingness to share about it is an inspiration to a lot of people, including me. I am absolutely encouraged by your story on a very personal level, and I think you know that, Ross. My last question is not for you to answer me, but for you to look into that main camera there, and Devin is probably going to zoom in just a little bit, and for any couple or any person who has had to say goodbye to a dream, to embrace another, who has had to face virtually insurmountable odds, to find a fresh start, going through the experience you're going through or something very similar, what would you say to that person now?
Even though it feels like it during the time, you're not alone. There are people who have been through it. There are people that'll hold your hand through it. And God is with you even when it doesn't feel like it.
She said it better than I can, but as you mentioned before, hold on. Hold on. Keep your faith strong, and surround yourself with people who are going to surround yourself with supporters, those who are going to be with you, who are looking out for you. If you're around people that are going to make things even more, like make things toxic or in another way, that's probably not the person you want to be around in that situation. Trust God, trust that he's going to be there for you, and hold on even when you feel impatient, because that's how we have felt quite a bit throughout this whole process, and you will get through it.
Wow, big thank you to Ross and Megan Knight. Big thank you. Come on, do better than that. Why don't you write in the comments, thank you. You guys, we're going to go to a commercial in just a second. Thank you both so much. And when we come back from that commercial, I'm going to be talking tonight about broken promises. So why don't you stick around, tell your friends to tune in, and we're going to talk about broken promises and the impact it has on our lives. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Thank you all for being here. Could you sense the power of their story as they were talking? I could absolutely sense the power of what they were sharing, and the impact that it had on my life is going to be told for many years from here. I want to thank you guys that are tuned in, that are watching right now. And tonight I'm going to talk about broken promises. One of the number one responses, kind of like in Family Feud, one of the number one responses that people give on giving advice to those that have experienced the betrayal of a broken promise is don't believe them next time. That's the number one bit of advice. Don't worry about it. You shouldn't have believed them in the first place. Maybe it was a great looking guy who said he loved you, took advantage of you. Maybe it was an absolutely stunning woman who said that she was going to always be by your side, and she left first chance she got. Maybe it was a coworker who said they were going to look out for you and then they forgot. Or maybe it was a teacher who you thought was going to keep their word about helping you through a difficult class. Whatever it is, broken promises come. They come in waves. They come almost like a tide. You can depend that as long as you're a human being and as long as you live in this world, you're going to get a broken promise at some point. Some people think that the best way to get over a broken promise is to get revenge. Did you know that? Dozens of people ask this question. Hundreds of people ask this question. What is the best way to deal with someone that breaks their promise? The response, get even. Get even. Well, I don't know, but every time I've tried to get even in my life, it leaves me in a bad place. Not much better off than I already was. The worst advice that you can give someone who is hurting from a broken promise is to tell them to get over it and ignore it. It's the worst advice you could ever give. How do I know? Because we're not designed to just get over it. If you listen to Ross and Megan's story, you can see that they relive every difficult moment as they talk about it. When you think about your journey, when you think about the difficult moments in your life, very few people have the ability to just move on as though it never happened. We begin to form hard outer shells that protect us in a way emotionally and mentally, even spiritually, to protect us from something that happened in the past. It's almost like an anchor. I was out on a boat. I shared this story with my friends here in Spartanburg a few weeks ago. I was out on a boat in Lake Macquarie, one of the largest saltwater lake in Australia, at least in the state of New South Wales. And Carl, who's here working with me, he was there on the boat, my father-in-law, and we borrowed the boat from my neighbor. Neither of us knew much of what we were doing. Neither of us had been out on this water before. So we had an anchor, we had rope, we had 2 oars to row if we needed them, where we needed them. And we had everything we need to catch all the fish we could. Any fishermen in the house? What's your favorite fish to catch if you're here? And if you're not a fisherman, what's your favorite fish to eat if you eat it? And if you don't eat fish, what's your favorite fish to look at? Why don't you answer that question? Why don't you answer that question tonight? So you got, if you don't eat it, what do you look at? If you don't catch it, what do you eat? And if you do catch it, what's your favorite catch? I love to hear that story. I want to hear. Just leave in the comments your favorite fish. And if you say, I don't know, they all taste good to me, you're my kind of people. But here, what I'd like to tell you is that we were out there fishing and the day is going in Australia. Every day is beautiful in Australia. It's almost as nice as South Carolina. Everything's finer in South Carolina. And while we're fishing, he said, well, go ahead and throw in the anchor. I did. I threw the anchor overboard and we kept fishing, and we started drifting and the breeze was blowing and we were catching fish. I, as always, was catching more than him. The only time he catches more fish than me is when we fish on his property. For some reason, the fish on his property only want to be caught by him. And so as we're catching, we realize we're getting out to the open water, heading out towards where the bay meets the ocean. And he said, well, we better go ahead and pull in. Why don't you pull the anchor up and let's row in? and I looked around, and I saw the oars, and I saw the fishing gear. Of course, Carl was still there, but there was no anchor to be found. He said, well, when you threw the anchor over, well, did you tie it to the boat? I said, you gave me the directions to throw over the anchor. You said nothing about tying it to the boat. Very few people are like anchors in boats in this story. Most of us in our life, we will actually, our minds are designed to tie a knot to the difficult moments to protect us from experiencing them again. When we hear a broken promise, we learn not to trust someone. When we break promises to ourselves, we learn the limits of our discipline, our ability to actually do what must be done in a certain situation. There are even physiological implications to this experience. You know what I mean? Your eyes will close and blink if someone jumps in your direction. You can feel the pain of being bitten by a bee as you run away from a swarm that seems in your path. You've been in an accident before. When you slam on the brakes, your body tenses up because you know what it feels like to have that experience. Well, what I want you to know tonight is that there is an escape from that. There's another side to it. There is a hope that can begin to give you enough rope so you can drift far enough away from those types of anchors to experience new things. That's really what we're trying to accomplish. When you don't have that hope rope, if you don't have that hope rope, you're going to be anchored to the very place and you'll float just over the pain. Am I talking to anybody tonight? But when you get enough hope to give yourself some distance, the pain doesn't go away. The anchor is still there, but you can get new experiences away from all of that hurt. As Megan talked and Ross talked tonight, I couldn't help but think they had to go from a dream deferred to embracing a whole new opportunity. And now they're living in expectation and hope that they'll get a call. And they will, without a shadow of a doubt. They're holding on, and it's going to make a difference in their journey. Here tonight, what do you do when it seems like you've been holding on too long? What do you do when it seems like every promise you get is always broken by the people that you were trying to trust? Well, there is no doubt in my mind that each of us has this brilliant opportunity to experience fresh mornings. Every day is a new morning. But if our hearts and our minds are anchored in some place of hurt or some place of doubt or some place of fear, no matter how many times the sun rises, it's still going to be a cloudy day for us. There is, in that Bible that I told you about, that collection of 66 books written by authors over nearly 2,000 years that never knew, many of them, each other. There was no collaboration document. There was no Google Sheets or Google Docs. There was no Zoom to meet. In many instances, they were in different parts of the world, and they were being inspired to write almost, in some instances, the exact same thing. Here in Luke chapter 24, verse 27, the Bible says, beginning at Moses and all of the prophets, Jesus expounded to them in all the scriptures the things concerning himself. Did you know that every single historian, major historical institutes, as they look over the history of humanity, every major historical theme agrees that there was a true historical figure, obscure in many instances, born around the turn of the first century, who lived under Roman rule, who followed a Judeo faith background or Jewish background. People claimed he was born without an earthly father. They claim that he had the power to heal. They claim that he had the ability to control natural laws, like walking on water, telling storms to stop. They say he could take very small things and turn them into very much. They say he even had the power over death itself. They called him Jesus. They called him Jesus. It's a true historical statement that he was born. It is a true historical statement that he died. Where historians began to disagree was, where did he actually come from? What power did he actually have? And what happened to his body on the third day when they couldn't find it in the grave anymore? Well, I want you to know that there are more than 100 different prophecies. You've heard this word prophecy. The word simply means to forecast something that will happen that has not yet happened. I want to look at 12 of them. There's a prophet named Micah who wrote in Micah 5:2. He said that the Messiah, the one that would save the world, he will be born in a place called Bethlehem. In Matthew chapter 2 and verse 1, hundreds of years later, the historical documents that we have indicate that the story of Jesus actually begins with his birth in a city called Bethlehem. Now, that might be a fluke. Every week I can say, this week you're going to have a good day. And most people every week will have at least one good day. I could easily also say, this week you're going to have a bad day, and you can just about count on it, all right? And so let's not look at one prophecy about where he would be born. As a matter of fact, there were lots of people named Jesus born in a place called Bethlehem. It was a very common name, just as common as John is or Muhammad is today. These very common names. Well, in Isaiah, who was a political figure, in Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14, it says that he will be born of a virgin. Some people call it, big words, immaculate conception, meaning he was born of a virgin. He had no earthly father to be in a relationship with a woman to bring a child into the world. Well, they say in Matthew chapter 1, verse 18 through 23, that he was born of a woman named Mary. And she claimed that the birth was immaculate, meaning there was no man involved. Let's keep going and look at these things. We've got two. I'm not going to go through 125. I'm going to go through 12, and I'm going to go through them quickly because I want to talk about these promises here. This Jesus, this Messiah was promised. Listen, let me tell you something. Megan, I know you agree. I think Ross agrees, but I know you agree. If there is someone who can make a promise to me and intends good for my life, and they have a track record of always keeping their promise, I want to put my trust in that kind of person. I'd like to trust that kind of person. Jeremiah, prophet, he said that Jesus, this Messiah, will be born down the bloodline of a king of Israel named David. Well, we understand in Revelation chapter 22 and verse 16, and if we look at the lineage of Jesus, the history, I'm slowing it down. In Matthew 1, he was in fact born in the bloodline of David. I know a little bit about bloodlines. I just learned my bloodline. My biological mother, who will be here on Friday evening to share her story. And there's so many nuances to that story, I can't even begin to capture it all. She'll be here Friday. But one of the things that happened, not on camera, I know a lot of you asked us online, how can I see the reunion? I like to see it. And I shared that with some of you, and we'll actually get to retell it on Friday night. But one of the things that didn't happen on camera when I went to their home in Tennessee was she had some things that she said, if anything were ever to happen to me, I was hoping that you would find me. And I've saved these things for you. These belong to your grandfather. And she was trying to give me a piece of heritage or history that was lost to me Even though I'm biologically related, she wanted me to have that part of the history that I was just learning about. Well, Jeremiah said that this Jesus will be born in the bloodline of King David. Revelation 22 agreed with that. In Jeremiah 31, he said that this Jesus will be a target of a murder attempt. Do you know that there was an edict around the exact time of Jesus' birth that all of the boys under a certain age would be killed? But somehow the story is told that Jesus and his family escaped to Northeast Africa, Egypt, where he was raised until it was safe for him to return to his home. So that prophecy was absolutely true. In Psalms chapter 41, verse 9, the psalmist who wrote this book, he said, or the person responsible for writing this, he said that he would be betrayed by a friend. Do you know that Jesus was not taken into custody to be crucified or executed by enemies? It was a friend that betrayed him named Judas, someone that followed him for 3.5 years and saw every single one of the great things just about that they said he did. He betrayed him for 30 pieces of silver. In the book of Zechariah, chapter 11 and verse 12, it said that he would be betrayed for 30 pieces of silver. Zechariah and Jeremiah may have been contemporaries, but David certainly was not. Micah was not. Isaiah was not. Possibly they overlapped timelines with one of these individuals, but they absolutely did not know each other. And they're all writing about this Messiah, about this promise that was going to come and make a difference. In Zechariah 12:10 said he would be crucified. There's even a reference to how he would be killed, and that reference was a reference to something that didn't even exist yet. In Psalms 34:20, it said no bones on his body would be broken. It was a practice to break the bones of the people that were crucified on the cross or executed on the cross. But when the soldier in John 19:31 through 36 got to Jesus, Jesus was already dead. So the soldier, the Roman soldier, who was responsible for breaking the legs of each of the prisoners, opted not to break Jesus' legs because he was already dead, even though it was the practice of the day. In Isaiah 53, verse 9, he said he would be buried in a rich man's tomb. Jesus did not acquire wealth. He did not acquire great assets when he lived on the earth, but he was buried in a man named Joseph of Arimathea's tomb. He had purchased this tomb for himself. Thankfully, he was able to use it because the prophecy said that Jesus would pick his life back up again. And so on the third appointed day, when he said he would do this, he did. Here, Hosea chapter 6, verse 2 said that Jesus, he would have the ability to hold his own life in his hands on the third appointed day to pick it back up. That's just 12 promises, 12 prophecies. And every single one of them came true. I like Brian Norcross from the Weather Channel. Anybody know Brian Norcross? Please forgive me if I'm quoting this wrong, but when I was a kid, he used to be the meteorologist on WSVN. And when Hurricane Andrew came in the mid-early 90s, he was the one talking us through the storm. And as he talked us through the storm, we began to build a trust for him because it seemed like he knew what he was talking about. Today, I have yet to find a great meteorologist. No offense to whomever the meteorologist is here in Spartanburg. But I have yet to find a great meteorologist. My meteorologist growing up, he would have to hold on to trees as the wind blew his legs in the background as he told the story of what was happening in the storm. And he would tell the story, and you can see it in my personality now. I grew up watching him. He would tell the story like he was telling a bedtime story to children around a campfire. All right, right now the trees are blowing. And I just saw one fall over, and there's a car floating away, and the boat just flew over my head. And he was the best meteorologist ever. And I remember as I grew up, I trusted Brian Norcross because if he said it was going to rain, it was going to rain. Now, truth be told, he didn't have a hard job because it rains every day in South Florida. If he said the sun was going to come out, the sun was going to come out. Wasn't a bad job because every day in South Florida, the sun comes out. But here, if Brian Norcross got on and said there's going to be an earthquake in a few minutes and the ground didn't shake, I wouldn't have trusted him. If he came on and said the hurricane is over and we were just in the eye and the back ring started covering us with the rest of the storm, I wouldn't have trusted him. I've learned as a human being that we don't trust people that don't keep their word. I've met doctors who said things. I had a doctor tell me, Ross, you'll never have children. I've got a beautiful baby girl, Riley Madison. I've had doctors tell me, you're going to be on disability for the rest of your life, and you need to accept that. Now, I'm a university professor now, and I walk real good. Need to walk a little more to get this down. So doctors can't always keep their word. Lawyers, even preachers, wives and husbands, boyfriends and girlfriends, children and parents. But here's a sure word that you can trust. Here's a solid truth that what Jesus did for us is he kept his promise. Do you know in Isaiah chapter 43, verse 4, it says, since you were precious in my sight, you have been honored, and I have loved you. In Jeremiah 31, verse 3, there's a reason the enemy doesn't want you to look in the Bible. In Jeremiah 31, verse 3, yes, I have loved you with an everlasting love. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave up his only son, so that whoever believes in him will not perish, but have everlasting life. How could someone love a person like me with my dark heart and my difficult mind? In Romans 5:8, God demonstrates his own love toward us, and that while we were yet sinners, Christ, talking about Jesus, he died for us. He did come as he said he would. He did die as he said he would. He did pick his life back up as he said he would. And there's one last promise that I want to share with you, and I'll talk more about it in a few nights. He said, let not your heart be troubled, in John 14:1. If you believe in God, believe also in me, he said of himself. Let not your heart be troubled. He said, I'm going to go and prepare a place for you so that where I am, there you can be also. In my Father's house, there are many rooms, many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you so. And he says that he's going to prepare that place and return to us so that where he is, we can be there also. If he kept all of the other promises, he's going to keep that one too. My dear friend, tonight, if you need a promise keeper in your life, just write the word promise in the comments. Promise. Promise. If you're here tonight and you need that kind of promise keeper in your life, why don't you just lift your hand real quick and put it down? If you've got arthritis, just do this. He wants to keep his promise to you. John Boston will fail you every time, but he will never fail you. Lord, we thank you for hearing our hearts tonight. Help us to hold on to your promises. In Jesus' name, amen. If you're watching tonight and you wrote that word promise, I want to encourage you to stay tuned to Hope for Hurting Hearts. There's a very special benefit to being a part of a journey like this, because you leave, I leave, we leave better than when we showed up. Every time we talk about these types of things, these types of promises, it makes a difference in our lives. And I want you to know that that's what we're here for. You're not alone. If you need to talk, send me a direct message. I've had people write to me and say, John, I'd like to talk about this. I'm dealing with this issue. I'm having this challenge. And I respond as fast as I get it. So make sure you do that. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. Ross has been playing double duty tonight. He had to give our interview, but he's also coming to help us with some questions. Let's put our hands together for Ross Knight one more time.
Thank you, John. Thank you for your message here. I just wanted, again, tonight, I wanted to start off with a few of the comments that we received. Just so you know, your mom is not the only parent that is watching. Megan's father was also watching while we were sharing.
Right,
our
hey,
testimony.
Dad, in the comments. Hey, Dad.
Her father, Craig Johnson, he wrote, "Call now. I am so proud of these two."
Oh, wow.
And we also had another person share, "I too have lost." And another person said, in regard to your message here, "I would like a friend who keeps promises."
Wow, very nice. Yeah.
And another person wrote, "I still get teary-eyed hearing about the death of Jesus and his suffering."
Yeah.
So I want to get to a couple questions. The first one's a lighter question for you all. I think I know the answer. If I know you well enough, but the question was, John, what is your favorite fish to catch?
My favorite fish to catch. Carl, what was the name of that fish that we would catch in Australia? It was a flathead, like a little guitar fish. I don't remember, but bass. I'm going to say bass. It would hit like a bass, but not on the surface. It swam low. And so you've got this strong hit, and it'll pull on the surface. And to be quite honest, it was the only fish I was good at catching. So, of course, that was my favorite fish to catch.
Here, I thought he was going to give a stereotypical preacher's answer. If I'm a fisher of man, and so man is my favorite thing to catch. Okay. Your next question is a little bit more tricky here. So it says, what do you do when someone breaks your trust?
This is a brilliant opportunity for me to express to you that I am sorry for every time someone's broken your trust. It's a very painful thing. It's a very high sense of betrayal. It's easier for us to deal with an enemy hurting us than it is for a friend. High sense of betrayal. One of the things that you have to understand is that you did nothing wrong. We often will blame ourselves. We'll say, I should have never trusted them in the first place. So you have to allow yourself the peace and the space to acknowledge that you did nothing wrong. Secondly, you have to prepare yourself for strong opportunities that will come. When we are betrayed, it leaves an opening in our hearts that can either make us bitter or better. And so you want to be prepared for better opportunities. I've had people that I thought were very close friends that hurt me very deeply. And when I finally accepted there was nothing I could have done, and I prepared myself for other healthy friendships, those healthy friendships came. And so that's the second thing. The third thing that I want to encourage you to do is that you have to evaluate yourself and the kind of person that you want to attract, the kind of person that you want to be in a relationship with. Not because you made a bad decision before, because people make mistakes. People fail. The best way to ask yourself, what kinds of people do I attract, is to ask yourself, how kind am I willing to be to someone if they were to hurt me again? Why do I say that? Because when you've been hurt by one person, the relationships over time, as you get older, they do not get deeper. Your relationships over time get more shallow because how you engage in a relationship is now informed by past trauma. So the person that stood you up for the date when you were 18 is a part of your life when you're 28, unless you make yourself available for healthy, deep relationships. As we get older, sometimes people say, I don't have time for friends. I'm living my life. I don't have time for deep, meaningful relationships. But guess what? The enemy wants, and I'll talk about what the enemy means when I say it, but the enemy wants us to isolate. It's okay to be an introvert, but it's a painful thing to isolate. Here, when we isolate ourselves from meaningful relationships because of the hurts of the past, we are doing our own selves a disservice. And the relationships that hurt us in the past, if we don't address them properly with health, then it will hurt the relationships, the beautiful relationships we can have in the future.
Thank you. And
before you go on, Ross, I had a question someone asked me.
Even better.
Someone asked me, and I can't pull it up, but I'll paraphrase. How did you overcome the feeling that you as a man had to fix it? How did you overcome?
Oh, so the question's for me.
The question is for you.
Okay. Oh, I thought he was asking himself a question.
But Ross is like, go ahead and answer, John. Question's for you.
I thought I was the person who was asking the questions.
I know. I'm sorry.
Well, I think it's something that is an ongoing journey. You know, I don't want to claim any sort of perfection in that area because it's a constant thing that I have to wrestle with as a husband, as a man. And you know, I've read books, and my wife and I have read books together about marriage and relationships and things. And I've had it spelled out for me that it's oftentimes the husband who has to battle this idea of trying to fix every situation or trying to fix it. And I am that stereotypical husband because whenever I see my wife cry or whenever I see my wife struggling with something, or maybe she's even had a hard day or she's been teaching all day long and she wants to come home and she wants to cry, I am so the person who wants to try and fix that every single time. And unfortunately, it's just not possible. It's not possible. And essentially what I've had to learn a lot of times is that first off, time heals things so well. When we'll just sit and embrace the pain or embrace being in that moment of uncertainty, time often will make us feel better. It's like when we feel sick, sometimes we need to lay in bed for a little while, you know, and be able to work through that. And so to answer that question a little bit longer than I intended, I don't know that I've completely overcome that, but being aware of that tendency is the first step for me to be able to fight it essentially. And like, you know, bite my lip if I'm going, I mean, my wife will be the first one to tell you that I often don't bite my lip in time, and I say something or I try and fix it too quickly. But, you know, I'm just like you. I have this, if you come up with a perfect answer that any husbands or fathers who are here, I'm happy and I'm all ears to learn that lesson myself. Well, you can take a swing at that question yourself, John, if you'd like.
Well, no, I think I love you. You said two things. You said I'm aware, and that awareness includes our capacity. We know what we're capable of, and we're aware. There's a movie that I watched years ago called John Q, and their son had a defective heart, and he was not eligible. They didn't have enough money to get a heart transplant.
And he went in with a gun.
I wasn't going to tell that part. And I'm not, please, I am not giving you that advice. But his wife is on the phone with him, and she said, John, you better fix this. And I said, well, that is a terrible thing to say to a man, because we're so dumb, we'll go out and try to fix things that we do not have the ability to fix. That's how dumb men are. And I get in trouble for saying that. I'm not a misogynist or a feminist. I believe in equal care and for all humanity. But the point that I want to make, Ross, is that awareness and capacity are the two best tools for someone, whether a man or a woman, who feels that they have to fix it. And hopefully you have a partner or someone that you love who says, I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen. I just need you to be here with me. Yeah.
Last question. Again, this will be a difficult one to keep in a small, a short time period. But the question is there any answer to why in the present? Okay, so meaning like, is there any answer to your why questions presently when you are going through a certain situation? Like, for instance, I know we have folks out here who are suffering the loss of a close friend. You might be asking the question, why?
Yeah.
And as my wife and I shared our story, we might be tempted to ask the question, why. And so many times you get this this thing, well, God's going to reveal himself. He's going to, he's going to, you
it's so annoying, isn't it?
eventually you'll know the answer as to why. But is there an answer to why in the present?
I want to address that. Paula Graham, I want to say hello to you. CJ Staten, that's my biological brother. Never knew I had a baby brother, and he's my baby brother. He's tuning in tonight from Mississippi. CJ, I'm so glad that you're here. Also want to say hello to, I think I saw one other person I wanted to say hello to, but I'll stop there. Is there a way to address the why? Ross, presently, yeah, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. Let me tell you why I have a very definitive answer. When you and Megan bring your beautiful child home, you will remember the pain, but you will not remember the weight. When doctors told my wife and I that we would never have children, I carried that in a terrible way. It affected me in terrible ways. You are such a brilliant example for me, and I hope that I grow up to be like you one day. I really do. In this context, I want to look like me, but I want your kind of heart. When I held her, and my doctor let me deliver my daughter, so I literally deliver her. The doctor's telling me, do this. Grab this, be ready to catch. We're going through this process. In that moment, I know that I hurt deeply, but it was 5 years from thinking I would have a child to having a child. It was a 5-year delay, and the delay was worth the deliverance. So what came for me, it filled me in a way that I can't truly describe. And so the why in your now is unfortunately a part of the experience. But this is the beautiful part. Whatever is going to come, for you and Megan, you're going to get a call. Whatever is going to come, it's got to be big enough to cover the depth of your hurt. And this is why one of the promises that we find in Scripture is where sin or brokenness or despair abounds, grace does much more abound. So what God will do for you at some appropriate point in time will be worth the why right now.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, John. Again, let's give John a round of applause for everything he's done and has been sharing with us throughout this week. I know those of you who are here, you know what time to be back tomorrow evening. What time is that, though, just so I know? 6:30. That's for the hungry people because they want to get the refreshments here. What time are we going to be going live? In fact, those of you who are tracking online, what time do you need to be here? Right in, what time is it, people? 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock. So that's going to be tomorrow and again on Tuesday as well. Thank you for tracking with us. We hope you have a great evening. Thank you.
I'm standing here at the very end of the Oregon Trail. Over 400,000 pioneers took a journey over 4 to 6 month period with ox-drawn wagons, looking for something more. Isn't it interesting that at the very end of the trail, it was the beginning of a whole new life? I want you to join me here at Max Life Events for Leading from Your Pain. It's a series that talks about what it means to get to the end of one part of your journey, which means the beginning of a whole new chapter. Press the button below so that you can be a part of this series right now. You have no idea what's on the other side of your pain. I'm John Boston. I want to tell you about something special, but do you see all of these tires? Every single one of them has been used, but they've got more tread life left, which means they're going to go on vehicles to get people where they need to go. In my life, I faced some difficulties that wore me down. I'm glad I didn't give up though. Do you know why? Because I've got more tread life left and I've got places to go. I've got things that I want to experience, things I have experienced that encourage me to keep going. Join me for Leading from Your Pain, where we talk all about the tread life that you've got left in your journey. I'm encouraging you to press this button right here. I want you to be a part of this journey, Leading from Your Pain. I've got a lot of tread life left, and so do you.